My name is John V. Welcome to Chautauqua People. My guest today is Dr. Chris Roddenberry, Associate Professor of Psychology at Wake Technical Community College in Raleigh, North Carolina. A recent Chautauquan, he is the Senior Science Officer for a major project which we'll discuss later today. Chris, how did you find your way to Chautauqua?
Well, I had a friend tell me about the place several years ago, told me I had to bring the kids, it'd be a great place. And we came here 4 years ago, and I absolutely just fell in love with it. The kids love it, the camps, and it's just a great place to relax and recharge your brain during the summer.
Right. Now, you started out your life in Mobile, Alabama.
Right.
And you have lived around, have you not, in various places?
Yeah, my father was an engineer that worked on various nuclear power plants and projects, so we bounced around a lot, and I just happened to be born in the southeastern swing of his career, I would suppose.
Right.
I settled here in North Carolina when I was 13 in Raleigh, and have been a lifelong Tar Heel since then.
And tell me about your formal education, higher education.
One word, or two words, North Carolina. I did my undergraduate there, I did my master's there, I did my PhD there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty much a Carolina born and bred boy.
Right, you love the Tar Heels.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And do you have any other teams you like in the state?
Wow. You know what? I like those Wolf Packers just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Bad, just a little bit.
Except when they're playing Carolina.
Exactly. But I'll give a tip to my good friend, Dr. Viehe, occasionally.
Okay, as a NC State alumnus. Now, Chris, tell me what field you earned your doctorate in.
Social psychology. And I have a research interest in student engagement and online models of education.
Right. Now, how did you get to Wake Tech?
Well, again, I'm a local boy with ties to the area, and so after graduating from the University of North Carolina, I felt like I could do more teaching at the local college. So I gravitated to Wake Tech and began developing online models of education there.
Right. Can you give us a little background about online education, how long it's been considered to be popular, where it came from?
Wow. Online education's been around, I would imagine, probably a little over 2 decades. It's a fairly new form of education that's grown in popularity and is relatively exploded here over the last 6 or 7 years as different learning management system, different website options for online educators have made it possible to streamline and create consistent educational material. The popularity in that form of education has just exploded. In fact, I think since 2010, the growth has been about 30% in online education.
Total or?
Total.
Now, if you were to look at a typical community college, what proportion of their student body would you anticipate would be taking courses online?
Probably 60 to 70% are taking at least one course online. Mm-hmm. And 97% of your community colleges are offering significant online programs now.
Right. Now, if we would take a look at those students enrolled in community college online classes, what has been the success rate, and how does that compare with seated classes? Right.
Well, it turns out that student outcomes in online classes aren't nearly as good as they are in seated classes, and nobody's exactly sure what's going on. A lot of alternatives have been offered, but it seems like it's hard for students to organize their time around these free-form learning activities that we have. There are difficulties that online students have that drive them to take online classes outside responsibilities. And there are a lot of stresses and struggles that online students have to deal with.
And what would an online student do? He or she reads the book, takes a test?
Well, the typical online model has been what I'd like to think of as sort of the internet version of the correspondence course. I don't know if you remember correspondence courses from the 80s, I guess it would be.
Right.
In a sense, that's what we do now. In a correspondence course, the teacher would send you assignments, you would complete those assignments and then submit them back to the teacher for grading. That's essentially what online classes are now. Teachers put PowerPoints, put lecture notes, and quizzes online. The student reads the material, completes the quiz, does the online assignment, and then submits that to the instructor, who then grades that. But what's missing is the social interaction that I believe is important in the educational process.
Right. And typically how many contact hours for a college student would there be in a semester, in a seated class? So you'd be
About 15 hours, 5 classes.
Okay, that'd be about 15 credit hours, and per course then, for a credit hour, the student would meet 1 hour per week for about 15 weeks. So if it was a 3 credit hour course, it might be 45 contact hours.
Right.
Okay, and then in a typical class now that is online, is there any contact time?
In a lot of online classes, no. And that's actually what I'm interested in creating in my classes. What we sometimes refer to as synchronous interaction, which is different from asynchronous, which is where we communicate at our leisure with one another, again, as in this correspondence model. What I've been working with for the last 7 years is synchronous models of interaction, where I actually go online and meet my students in real time and interact with them over course content. It's a meeting, a class meeting, but we do it remotely. So I can have a student in Europe, a student in North Carolina, a student in New York, and a student in Florida, and we can all be interacting in real time online.
I did a program at Duke this past year, and I was the farthest one away from North Carolina. I was in Berlin, and we had people scattered all the way across the United States to the left coast. Somebody in San Francisco.
Right, and with the new meeting technology, you can interact with learning objects in real time. You can look at a video, you can look at a PowerPoint presentation, you can look and interact with a Microsoft Word document. You know, you can engage in real activities and real learning activities with your student. And it allows you to build a connection with the student. Online education can be a fairly alienating endeavor, because you never see the instructor, you never see the other students. And I think when things get difficult for the online student and they don't feel like they have a resource to cling to, that's when you get the student withdrawing from the class.
Right.
But by having these weekly meetings, we build a connection, a sense of trust, a sense of reliance, and a channel of communication that my students and I have opened. And then I can help the student troubleshoot the problems and help them make it through the class.
Now, have you had any students with unusual backgrounds participate in your classes online?
Absolutely. In fact, last semester, one of my students was homeless.
Right.
And he would actually go to the library on Wednesday nights, and he would attend these meetings in the public library. And he had to take the online class because it was difficult for him to get from where he lived to campus every day. So the seated class option wasn't available to him. But he would go down to the library near where he camped, and we would interact this way.
You have some footage of the student?
Yes, I do.
Can we take a look?
Absolutely.
I appreciate that you're there and you're willing to answer questions mostly face to face. You know, it's over the internet.
Close enough.
Yeah.
21st century face to face, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got, what, a 50 student course load? That's a lot of people to get to know.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right. So we do ask our people, what are some of the challenges that you face as a student at Wake Tech? I mean, you know, people have work, people have kids. What challenges do you face?
Well, my personal challenge recently, up until November 1st, was I was homeless. I was living in a tent in the woods on NC State campus. So I had to deal with mold and moisture and animals in the middle of the night coming to bite in my tent looking for food. But what really ended up getting me the most about that situation was I didn't have any internet. So I would have to go to NC State's library, which was just up the road. It's only about a 15-minute walk, or even closer was the Burger King Wi-Fi, and I was actually able to do most of my classes through Adobe Connect at that restaurant.
Oh, really? So you actually spent some of your time at Burger King coming to meetings?
Yep, absolutely. It was a pretty good experience, and they weren't too particular about if I bought something or anything. But
So what's this?
what's this? This is my tent. Well, where my tent used to stand.
Right here, huh?
And it was beautiful. All right, it wasn't as level as I would have liked it to be. I kind of tried to fix that, but I uncovered the root, so I had to stop.
Makes good sense.
Yeah. You know, this is kind of, there's brush over there, there's brush over there. You really have to come back here to see me back here. And aside from a few college students, nobody bothered me.
Not the grill and hot-cooked meals.
Hot cooked meals are great when you're used to eating like canned food and bowls of cereal. Over winter, you can actually leave a gallon of milk outside and it doesn't go bad.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, so having a grill was essential for, you know, cooking ramen. Every once in a while, maybe I could cook a steak. Just whatever I could get from food banks.
So you cooked the meat on that?
Absolutely. You know.
Meetings with students. Can you tell us what's going on here, Chris?
Exactly. So I've got a couple of students showing their video feed right now. As many students as have video cameras can stream their live video. And what we're doing there is starting a meeting. On the left side of the screen is a chat bar, so the students who are not able to speak are chatting amongst themselves and asking me questions. And on the right side, the white bar on the right is the list of students, and I've probably got about 45 students in there at this time. And what we'll do is I'll share the center screen after class starts. I let my students show their videos at the beginning of class so that we can sort of get to know one another and what each other looks like. But as soon as class starts, what I'll do is I'll change that center screen to a PowerPoint presentation or a YouTube video or some sort of learning object, and then the students and I will interact with that learning object in real time in an interactive way.
And so that becomes a situation that is very different than an online class that's simply cold and remote, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I really feel like I get to know my students as well as I did my seated students. It's not just about seeing what they look like every day, but talking to them and finding out their interests, their concerns, their strengths, their weaknesses. And you miss a lot of this when you're using what I call the old online model of education. In this model, what you call it online 2.0, you actually begin to know your students as if they were your seated students. And so it's these connections that allow the students to feel comfortable to reach out when they need assistance.
Right, right. Now, when you're doing this with the meeting software, you have these sessions, how often do you hold them?
I hold office hours a couple of times a week. And then I do a weekly Wednesday night class that students can attend.
And that's online?
And that's online.
Now, do the students get any bennies for participating in the weekly class?
Well, of course, it serves as their attendance requirement. So in online classes, attendance in a lot of online classes, it's pretty standard to capture attendance some way.
Right.
It's typically done with these discussion boards or blog posts that students do. What I do is I give my students the option to attend the meeting instead of doing discussion boards, blog posts, and other what I call asynchronous, or what are called asynchronous interactive activities.
Right, right. And is your dropout rate different than others doing courses without this software?
Over the last 2 or 3 years that I've been doing this and keeping statistics, my dropout rate is 10 to 15% better than those in the department.
Right, right. Now, I understand you have a research project going on at Wake Tech looking at the effects of such educational innovations. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. It's a first-in-the-world grant that we received last year. I'm part of a team that received this grant.
Was it a competitive arrangement?
It was a very competitive arrangement, and we feel very fortunate to compete with the likes of some fairly sophisticated four-year universities.
Right, right. Tell us a little more about it.
So the grant is, it's called the Compass Project, creating online models to promote at-risk student success. And what we're doing is using this interactive meeting technology and other synchronous tools to help bridge the gap in the distance between our instructors and our minority and other disadvantaged students.
Right.
So the online withdrawal rate is higher than the seated withdrawal rate in community colleges. What you're going to find is that the student achievement gap is also exacerbated in online classes. So the minority students have even a little more difficulty compared to other students in these online classes.
Right.
And if you'll read the sociology of education literature, what it's going to suggest is that we need to overcome feelings of alienation that exist in some of these underrepresented groups. And that alienation, if it's bad in an online class for a student, a non-minority student, it's magnified even more for a minority student. So what we're attempting to do is to use this technology along with texting and the use of videos to create classes that bridge the distance between instructors and the student population.
Okay. Now the grant is for how much?
It's a $2.7 million grant, and it runs for the next 4 years.
And who gave the money?
It's a Department of Education
U.S.
grant.
Department of Education.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
Now, typically such grants have an evaluation component. What is the component for your grant?
We're actually attempting to run what's called a randomized control trial, which is basically an experiment with random assignment. So it's a big organizational process as we try to take these 1,200 students that we have and randomly assign them to instructors who are using the treatment and instructors who are not using the treatment. Mm-hmm. So it's a quantitative study that runs over the next 3 years, and we're going to be looking at student performance in the class, that is withdrawal rate as well as success rate, A, B, or C. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, what we want to know is, can we build bonds that allow these students to persist in future semesters? So we're also going to be looking at student persistence throughout several semesters to see if maybe we can create some sort of ties that help bind the student to the school and get them closer to graduating.
So it isn't just one class, but it's the bigger academic picture that comes out of this.
Exactly. Online students have a harder time integrating with the class. If you're not coming to school for one reason or another, it's harder to integrate with the class. So what we're trying to do is to create a vehicle to allow real social interaction and integration with the college campus and the college experience. So for example, we're creating virtual resources on campus for our students so that they can come in and have basically the same interaction as the students on campus. For example, we have a student resource center, a student tutoring center. We actually have a virtual version of that where online students can log into an Adobe meeting room and actually interact in real time with a tutor or another help professional to get help on their paper, their math homework, their biology homework. We've got a male minority mentoring program on campus. We're going to begin live streaming those leadership meetings this fall, and so we're going to provide our minority male students an outlet for actually attending these mentoring meetings. We're going to have a barbershop series in the fall featuring local barbershops, and we're actually going to allow these, we're going to film these barbershop owners in live time, and we're going to create live webinars for our online students to interact with them, ask questions. And what we're hoping to do is to build networks and alliances for these minority students, which will help act as a buffer against some of the alienating forces that they find in the college experience.
Got it. Now, what percentage of the students at your community college are minority?
Wow. Close to 50%.
Close to 50%.
Yes, it's a very cosmopolitan campus at Wake Tech with a large contingent of students from around the world even. I would say we're kind of an international campus with a lot of students who are for whom English is a secondary language.
Right. Now, just to talk about them for a moment, do they have a requirement to demonstrate some English competence before they can take these classes?
Yes.
And how's that measured?
I think they have test of English as a foreign language, so they have a standardized test that they give the students. But even then, I think even when a student passes one of these competency tests, are they really prepared for the textbooks and the other things that go along with the higher educational process without some sort of support? And that's what I'm hoping to build with this model, is a system of support, so maybe the student who needs help with this second language will feel comfortable asking me.
Right. Now, is your life all science and math?
Oh, absolutely not.
I heard that you like baseball.
I've played a little baseball.
Tell us about that in conclusion. We got 4 minutes.
We got 4 minutes. I absolutely love baseball, maybe even a little bit more than teaching. So I have 2 boys that play baseball in high school right now. I spend a great deal of time coaching them. I actually play in the men's 30 and over and men's 40 and over baseball leagues. I also coach an 11-year-old team on Wednesday afternoons, and I do Miracle League baseball every spring and fall.
What is Miracle League?
Miracle League, it's a baseball experience for children with disabilities.
Okay.
So we have a lot of children with autism, Down syndrome, other types of problems that prevent them from playing baseball with some of the other kids. And, you know, for me, the more people I can get on the field, the better. So if I'm not at school, chances are you'll probably find me on a baseball field.
Right. And can you make any connection between baseball and college psychology?
Baseball and college psychology. It's all between the ears.
Okay.
It's all between the ears. If you think you can do it, you can do it. And it's learning how to deal with failure, right?
Okay.
In baseball, if you make an out 7 out of 10 times, you'll go to the Hall of Fame, right?
Okay.
So It's all about learning how to grind through the difficulties.
Right, right. Now, where have you gone on your baseball travels? You visited any famous stadia, or you been to Cooperstown?
Oh, of course. My older brother actually has a ball club in Boston, and every summer we meet in Cooperstown for a grudge match on a double-day field.
Okay.
His group of old men versus the Raleigh group of old men.
Okay.
And we get out there on the field and play a doubleheader, and then spend the weekend at the Hall of Fame. And it's
what's your success against these folks from Beantown? Doesn't sound good, Chris.
You know what? They swept us last time. They swept us last time. Typically, we can beat them, but they had our number last time.
Okay.
It was difficult.
But in the long haul, you got the upper hand here.
Absolutely, Raleigh baseball is much better than Boston baseball.
You betcha. You betcha. Okay, Chris, this has been fun. Is there anything we haven't covered that we need to share with people in the serious moment here about online education and where you see it going?
I see online education hopefully becoming more interactive and hopefully less expensive, providing free and low-cost educational models for students to use.
Right. Now, one last sort of curiosity on my part. Does this sort of education seem to be appropriate for some disciplines as opposed to others? Like for teaching math and science as opposed to...
You know, I believe online education has challenges that make it difficult to adapt to different types of content. But, you know, I would argue that in seated classes, it's difficult to teach some kinds of content that are easier to teach online.
Right.
So I would say maybe it's a question of matching content to teaching methodology.
Mm-hmm. And I assume as the literature gets fleshed out, that'll probably tell us some sorts of things that are...
Online education is so new that we still have a lot of questions to flesh out, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been great fun. My name is John V., and we thank you for joining us on Chautauqua People. And Chris, do come back.
Thank you very much.